All right, great morning, everyone. Great to be here. Happy Saturday. We are live now. So we'd like to welcome you. If you can let us know where you're connecting from. We are going to start with our reading this morning, and we got no one greater than our awesome friend, Jameson Rowe. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Amazing, Fernando. Thank you very much. I mean, they have to lead the way. You're the clear example that we have of this book, living example of leading the way, showing us and nurturing us to our full potential. Because, like he says in the book, sometimes leaders don't show up. They get developed through giving them tasks and that stretch beyond their perceived abilities, or and then when you stretch them, they grow to that potential.
Hey, we appreciate you. You're that leader. You're a leader already, but a greater leader in the making, and that's what I love about you. You show up to everything. You do exactly what you're taught. And taking this reading club this morning, the way you do it, the way you lead us, I'm ready to take notes. I learn so much from you every time you read. I pay very close attention. You're an amazing leader, and I know what you are definitely capable of becoming, which is a greater leader. And that's obviously your expectation. So, Jameson, thanks again.
Thank you very much.
All
Those
right, I'm
kind
gonna
words,
get behind
Fernando.
cameras.
Okay. Well, I gotta get my readers on here. Okay. I'm in page chapter 10. The leader's lasting contribution, reproducing generations of leaders. And on my book, I have page 191, and the subsection is a follower becomes a leader. So continuing on, I'm going to read a little bit of the sentence above, which is starting at it's going to be express high belief in them, but I'm going to go a few sentences above that and start a little bit at the end of the paragraph. So it says, you may have people you are preparing to develop who are non-leaders like Barbara was, which was his secretary that he brought up. If you do, there are four things to keep in mind as you develop them. Maintain a positive environment. People who do not already possess leadership skills must have an environment that is positive and conductive to their growth. Conducive, excuse me, to their growth. Without that environment, they will be afraid of growth. With it, they will be willing to learn and try new things. Provide the environment, then keep them close to you so that they can begin learning how to think. Express high belief in them. People who are already naturally inclined towards leadership and who have no leadership experience often get discouraged easily. Because they have not been leaders before, they will make mistakes. They make they may make a lot of them, especially in the beginning. Their development is likely to be a long process. By expressing a high belief in them, you encourage them to persevere even when things get tough. Empower them. In the beginning, followers are reluctant to assume leadership roles, so they must be empowered by their leaders. Start by walking alongside of them and giving them authority in your name. As time goes by, others will begin to reframe their view of the new leaders, and the new leaders' view of themselves will also change. Eventually, people will begin to recognizing them for their own authority. Play to their strengths. It is critical that you begin in development process by playing to their strengths because they have experienced few successes in leadership before. They need a few wins under their belts. It's really it really accelerates the development process and the new leader begins building momentum. When you begin developing a follower into a leader, the time and energy required will slow down your progress. You may be tempted to stop developing the person, but don't. It could be a terrible mistake. In the case of Barbara, his secretary, developing her took a little bit of time in the beginning, but not only did she more than make up for it by giving me 11 wonderful years of service, she is now passing on what she has learned to others. I think Stephen Covey says sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. A manager becomes a leader. When I first met Dan Reland and his wife Patty at a leadership conference I was holding in Indiana, he was still a seminary student. Dan had been a member of Skyline, felt a call to ministry, and gone to seminary before I became Skyline senior pastor. He then returned as an intern during my first year at the church. Dan's development was very interesting. Dan's smart. He's a good scholar and he was a good student in seminary. He had often been put in charge of the activities he was involved in, and he had even been the president of his class. But despite his good qualities, he wasn't a leader. He was really more of a manager. A manager. Managers think different from leaders. Managers tend to focus on tasks and systems, maybe like an engineer or like a green like me. They have narrow vision. They sometimes tend to be dogmatic, and most of all, their focus is not relational. Dan tended to focus on task and the work at hand. He was a hard worker, but he put task ahead of people. I remember one day several of us were talking in an office hallway, and Dan walked right through us without saying a word. It was at that point that I knew he and I needed to have a serious conversation, or he wasn't going to make it on my team. I was able to sit down with Dan and confront him about his relational skills because he knew that I believed in him and generally cared about him. This is the crazy part. Ironically, I found out that Dan really loved people and his heart, he wanted to relate to them. He wanted to relate to them. But his internal desire wasn't made clear by his actions. Actions speak louder than words. People working with him had no idea how much they mattered to him. Again, people working with him had no idea how much they mattered to him. It was then that I began spending extra time with him developing his skills to relate to others as a leader does. I taught him to walk slowly through the crowd, interacting with people rather than going past them in order to accomplish his task. Again, managers are task oriented. They have a very narrow vision and they they're like a bow and arrow. They see a target, they draw the bow and they just fire it. Now, as I mentioned in chapter 3, he became an executive pastor of Skyline and was invaluable to me. His ability to relate to others has become one of his strongest qualities, and he considers it foundational to his ability to lead. Again, the saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care is summarized by this one chapter or one paragraph. And in the square box beside, how big we think determines the size of our accomplishments. If you have potential leaders who think like managers, your goals are to help them to develop better relational skills and change their pattern of thinking. While you have to slow down to teach a follower how to lead, you may have to come to a complete stop in order to help a manager become a leader. The reason is that you will sometimes need to stop what you are doing, walk the person through your thought process, and explain why you are doing what you are doing. You must constantly show them. You must constantly show them the big picture until they begin to see it for themselves. I have found that all true leaders share some common characteristics in their thinking. Back up to there. So it's vision and mission alignment, or they own the vision. Once the vision is inside of them, or they align what they love the most, their values, and there's a alignment with the organizational values or the leader's dream and vision. Once there's an alignment and it gets internalized, for a person that thinks like a manager or like an engineer, they need to know the dynamics of the components. And then once they see that, they'll put them all together and be able to see it as a whole instead of individual tasks. That's one of the challenges. Leaders think big. They always look at the big picture and they know that their success is only as great as their goals. As David Schwartz said, where success is concerned, people are not measured in inches or pounds or college degrees or family background. They are measured by the size of their thinking. Hmm. How big we think determines the size of our accomplishments. If you constantly show the people you are developing the big picture and keep stressing possibilities rather than problems, they will start thinking big. Leaders think in terms of other people. Leaders don't focus on themselves and their own individual successes. They think about the successes of the organization and other people. Other people focus. They have no They have an other people mindset. To develop others, you must teach them to think in terms of how they can promote others, develop others, and take along others. That just sounds like a a business that literally is focused on building leaders to build a business. And that's amazing. Leaders think continually. People who are not leaders are content to sit back and allow others to do the thinking. That's a follower. Leaders are constantly entertaining new ideas, considering new resources, thinking about improving, contemplating finances, and managing their time. They own their work. They're accountable to themselves and everyone else. Yeah. Thinking continually enables leaders to keep stretching themselves and growing their organizations. That's called thinking outside the box and dreaming and planning and envisioning outside the box. Yeah. As you develop leaders, model this kind of thinking and promote it by asking questions. That's a key thing right here. As you develop leaders, model this kind of thinking, first of all, and promote it by asking questions. Asking questions is a critical way of actually helping to control a conversation, which I'm going to back here. Leaders think bottom line, while others get bogged down in the details. Leaders look for the bottom line. Hmm. If you often ask the people you are developing to give you the bottom line, they will soon begin determining what it is before you ask for it. Eventually, they will begin thinking in those terms, unprompted. Yeah, a couple of them. Leaders will think without lines. Leaders think without lines. People who are not leaders automatically gravitate toward lines. limitations set by others, the box. Speaking about the box, I'm reading the box. Progress and innovation are made by people who think without lines. Maybe people are taught in this, maybe people are taught this in kindergarten when they are instructed to stay within the lines while coloring. But leaders are more creative than that. Key thing is they are creative because they're driven and have the desire to improve, to excel. They look for options and opportunities. They try to take things to a new direction or beyond the limit. Progress and innovation are made by people who think without lines. One little story that I could relate to this is when my kids were growing up when they were young, two, three, four, five, and they would come to me and they say, "Daddy, we all want a lollipop." And I say, no. And they'd ask me a couple more times. I said, and they'd keep on saying, no, no. And then they would go to turn around and walk away. I said, wait a minute, you forgot to ask the next question. And they said, what? How can I have a lollipop? That's a different question. And then I said, okay, great. Then go clean your room and take all the toys up out of the hallway, and then I'll give you a lollipop. Oh, okay. And they go do it, and I give them a lollipop. I was just trying to teach them to think beyond the barrier of no, because mentally, when we hear the word no, we tend to shut down, even if we try to make ourselves known and try to keep on pressuring them like kids do. They love to do the kid thing and wear us down. But I always have that back next question. I'm teaching them to go beyond that hurdle that is perceived hurdle or the wall. To go beyond that, we need to keep our mind, as it says, keep on looking for resources, thinking about improving around, a way around, going under, around, or through the obstacle, because the ultimate result is adding value to my life and their life. And in that way, it's a win-win instead of them just getting what they want. Leaders think in terms of intangibles. Leaders are abstract thinkers. They think in terms of intangibles like timing, morale, attitude, momentum, and atmosphere. Hmm. They read between the lines. They anticipate the unexpected. I'll read this last one and then we'll take a stop. Leaders think quickly. Leaders size up a situation quickly and then size it immediately. Let me read that again. Leaders size up a situation quickly and then size it immediately. Seize it. That's the word I was looking for. Seize. Leaders size up a situation quickly and then seize it immediately. Okay. Two reasons leaders are able to do this are that they think in terms of the big picture and they do their work, their homework, so that they have information to use to help them make decisions quickly. As Dan developed as a leader, he took on a tremendous amount of the load for me. He ran Skyline for me, directly led 13 pastors, and oversaw a staff of more than 40. But Dan did more than that. Where he most excels is in the development of other men. Since 1987, Dan was selected a handful of men each year to personally develop. Already he has worked with and developed more than 100 of them. Dan's development of leaders is systematic and strategic. He constantly looks for potential leaders to develop, and he sees himself as a lightning rod, able to capture and focus the energy required to make men grow. For his part, he says that he is effective because he always keeps in mind the vision, again, of developing leaders. He maintains people development as a lifestyle, vision, and lifestyle. And he renews his commitment to it regularly. These are all italicized. I'll read that again. For his part, he says he is effective because he always keeps in mind the vision of developing leaders. He maintains people development as a lifestyle and he renews his commitment to it regularly. The key to the whole process, though, is relationships. Another word that should have been italicized. He says that the men he develops grow as leaders due to their relationships with one another, equipping that they receive, and the synergy of their interaction with him in another. That is another key word, synergy. Love that word. What sustains the whole process, though, is the relational part of it, the area in which he himself has grown the most. All right, I'd like to take a stopping point there and see if anyone has any questions or comments. Anybody out there?
Good morning. How are you, Jameson? Great read. I
Thank
want
you.
to I want to start first by saying in the first part, very first, express high beliefs in them, which is true because as leaders, they have to pinpoint what their team's greatness is or what they see as their greatness and push them to move. Like we're new, we'll stumble, we'll fall, we'll make mistakes, but we strengthen ourselves by getting up and trying again. Now, another one I can relate to very good is a manager becomes a leader. That is me all the way. I have been a manager for over 20 plus years, and I'm telling you, it is hard to switch the flip, to flip the switch. But I'm getting there and I'm learning and I'm pressing forward. But this is so true in the manager, if they in the leader, if they see that, they find that it is kind of hard to make that manager see a different aspect when they've been managing people instead of leading people. It's a fine line, but you still have to have that mindset to blend both together in order to be a good leader. So that's what I found so far in your reading, but you're having a good read, Jameson.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, definitely. That one part of a manager um, into a leader is very so much so that it's almost like a person that manages people is more like seeing them as a resource or as a tool to get a job done instead of a creator or a thinker and someone that could think outside the box and literally give them solutions and turn it over like a self-generating person that can provide solutions and the leaders more about developing that skill so where they can duplicate themselves. Yes, that's amazing.
Absolutely. That's correct.
Anyone else out there?
Hey, Jameson, I'm back. Great read, by the way. I'm going to go back to the section of leaders think bottom line. While others get bogged down in details, leaders look for the bottom line. I think once we see the bottom line, we know that there's going to be a lot of errors in between, what you want to accomplish in your leadership skills development, and you learn to trial and error. So, but if you have a bottom line mentality instead of all the details, you're going to figure things out. And the reason why I say that is because if you have a big why, the how-tos will take care of all the details eventually into perfection. So we got to give ourselves room space instead of us, judging us and thinking we can't do it, and thinking in other ways of how can I do it instead of I can't do this. How do I figure this out quicker, right? And then continue to make the errors until you correct the error, and Sometimes you don't even know it's going to come from an angle you didn't expect it to come, but you were doing so much that eventually the bottom line gets done. The results that you want to accomplish and achieve are overcome. You overcome all the difficulties and the hurdles to make things happen. So leaders think bottom line. I like that. And thanks again for the reading.
Yes, thanks so much. That reminds me of Thomas Edison and the light bulb. He's like, I need to light the world. I'll go through 10,000 of these things and eventually I'll find the right one.
And in the process, Jameson, he figured out a lot of other things that he gave him life. But
Yes,
they were just a part of his learning curve, I think. He developed so many projects until, he achieved. Thomas Edison achieved what he had to achieve, which was his mission. Took him 10,000 times, but within those 10,000 times, he put a lot of things to work.
yes. Do you know these sticky notes? They were actually an error. They were trying to develop the strongest glue possible at 3M, and they made something that was not good, but they put it to
Wow,
work. They put this error to work, and now it fills the world.
amazing.
Anybody else out there? Okay, I'll continue on. A leader changes leadership style. When I hired Shirley Flesher on my staff, Skyline staff, I knew she was a strong leader. She had vision, was able to make decisions, thought big, and had a bottom line mentality. But she also tended to be autocratic and a bit dogmatic. She was a leader, but she did not lead relationally. Sounds more like an engineer again, or more like authoritarian, like a dictator. She described herself as being mission minded rather than people minded. What's so funny is she needs people to accomplish her vision or mission. People are the most critical, important part. The turning point on Cheryl's development came when she handled a difficult situation with a person less effective than she could have. She described the way that she did things as politically naive and relationally stupid. Soon after it happened, she sat down with her. I sat down with her and told her that I supported her and believed in her, but that she would have to grow and change her relationship style if she wanted to make it on the team. Not only did she grow as a leader, she became one of the team's best leaders. One of the most important parts about change is being aware of what could potentially be wrong. Awareness is the beginning of, was it? Yeah, awareness is the key start to any kind of change. With Cheryl, my goal was not to change her personality, it was to change her mode of operation, her leadership style. He didn't want to change her, he just wanted to change the way that she related to people. She relied on structure and position to establish her leadership. I wanted her to become a relational slash empowering leader. There were times that I had to stop what I was doing and do some backtracking to retrain her, but it was definitely worth the effort. Anytime you want to change a leader's style, you must do the following: model a better leadership style. The very first thing you must do is show them your better leadership style. If they don't see that there is a better way to lead, they will never change. Show them so that they have something to identify in their mind. Identify where they err. Observe them to determine where they make their mistakes. You won't be able to help them change if you don't know if they don't. Backing up. You won't be able to help them change if you don't know what must be changed. Get their permission to help them change. If they are not committed to the process of change and to allowing you to help them, all your effort will be wasted. People will give you their permission when they hurt enough to need change, learn enough to want change, or receive enough to make them able to change. When the pain's big enough and the pain is stronger than the comfortability of where they're at, they will change. Show them how to get from here to there. Even when they have the knowledge that they need to change and the desire to make the change, they may not be capable of making a change. Show them the way step by step. I can feel that one. Give immediate feedback. Because you will be helping them break bad habits, you must respond to their actions immediately. Learning something for the first time is always easier than unlearning something that was learned wrong. I learned that lesson when I had to unlearn my golf swing. When you retrain people to lead relationally, give them immediate feedback for both the good things and the bad things. As Cheryl grew and began to lead from the heart, she became a wonderful developer of leaders. She identifies people development as her passion in life. When she became the pastor of personal growth ministries at Skyline, she, like Dan, was always searching for people to develop. She listed the following qualities in women she was to develop: faithful. They must be consistent in their actions, reliable, and committed. Available. A for, okay, backing up, it's faith is the acronym. A for available. They must be accessible to their personality and willing to grow. I, initiating. They must be inquisitive and hungry to grow. T, teachable. They must be receptive to her style of mentoring and teaching. H for honest. They must be transparent and honestly willing to develop others. Cheryl and I once sat down to talk about the way she develops people. I think she lost track of how many people she worked with, but she is very aware of the positive effect her mentoring had on Skyline. Again, very aware. That is the key, is being able to be aware of what's outside of you instead of only internalizing in your own head. She told me that her joy is to recognize where people are, meet them there, love and accept them, and then mentor them. That is like amazing. Mentoring and teaching. That's a very positive thing. Her goal is to get them to develop into the people they were created by God to be. Basically pulling the leader out of them. Growing the leader within them. That's a better word. Growing the leader within them and developing the leader within them. And she wants to get them to carry the relational leadership, the tradition of leadership development. She succeeds too. She mentioned that one of the women she is developing pointed out 6 generations of leaders in one room who had been mentored, starting with Cheryl. That's quite an accomplishment. Today, Cheryl continues to make an impact as a staff member of Willow Creek Community Church. A good leader becomes a great leader. Dick Peterson was already a first-class leader before he met me. When I came to Skyline, he was a manager in what was America's premier corporation at the time, IBM. In fact, Dick was one of the top three managers in the country in IBM's administrative area. Had he stayed with IBM, his next step would be a regional management, then on to a vice presidency. And I'm sure he would have made it as a leader. He was probably in the top 5% in the country. When I had been at Skyline for about a year, I asked him to become a member of the church board. I wanted him on the team. I knew he would be a great contributor to the church and me, and I believed he would also benefit from the experience. You see, I give more thought, time, and attention to the development of people on my board than anyone else, with the exception of my family. Board members are the top leaders and influencers I have contact with. I spent 3 years developing Dick while he was on the board. I built a good personal relationship with him. I spent time equipping him, and I constantly challenged him to grow. Once, when I was preparing to fly to Dallas to talk to some people about ways to begin equipping leaders on a larger scale, I took Dick with me. He was a part of the discussion that gave birth to Enjoy. As a leader, he jumped right in and helped get it off the ground. He started as a volunteer. He later resigned at IBM to run Enjoy full time for more than a decade. One of the beauties of developing a person who is already a strong leader, is that it gives you momentum. Where a leader must slow down to develop followers, stop to develop managers, and backtrack to change the style of misguided leaders, he can actually speed up as he strengthens good leaders. They practically teach themselves. They pick things up just by being around you, often with little or no effort on your part. If you are fortunate enough to have strong leaders in your influence, begin developing them by doing the following. Put them on a personal plan for growth. Most good leaders are growing, but they frequently do not have a personal plan for growth. After you've gotten to know them, their strengths, weaknesses, desires, goals, etc., sit down with them and prepare a personal growth plan tailored to them. Then follow up periodically to encourage them, check their progress, and help them to make adjustments. Create opportunities to stretch them. It is while doing activities that we thought were beyond our capabilities that our greatest growth occurs. It actually accelerates our development. It also gives us additional opportunities to apply the principles we are learning. As you further develop leaders, plan to put them into situations that will stretch them. A little comment on this that just came to mind again. One of the things that we learn when we're young is we make decisions based on sometimes on inaccurate, incomplete, or outright misinformation. And those decisions that we make, we decide how to relate to the world. And in that decision, it gets kind of locked in, and then we develop we look for reasons to see that it's true. And if we misunderstand something, especially when we're young, or we get false information by mistake, the decision literally locks in, and we have the way of like unlearning that decision definitely becomes a challenge. And it's harder to change a decision than it is to form a new one. But definitely by being around it and having someone model it and to see it outside of yourself and go, wait a minute, let me try that. And then you start to eventually change that decision to where the you stack up more benefits to this new way of looking at it, this new decision, than the old one, and the old one eventually just fades. I think I was at the bottom. Yes. All right. I'll just read it again just in case. Create opportunities to stretch them. It is while doing activities that we thought were beyond our capabilities that our greatest growth occurs. It actually accelerates our development. It also gives us additional opportunities to apply the principles we are learning. As you further develop leaders, plan to put them in situations that will stretch them. I'm reading that so fast because I read it once. Learn from them. Whenever I spend time developing someone who is already a good leader, I learn too. You will also learn much from leaders as long as you maintain a teachable attitude. As you, the person teaching them, maintain a teachable attitude. Plan shared projects with them. It is a great way to learn and get tremendous things accomplished at the same time. Dick's development was transformed. Dick's development has transformed him. He was already a strong leader, but now he is a strong builder of leaders. Developing people is now like breathing to him. Without it, he wouldn't be who he is. He's definitely owned that, and it's internalized and literally is a part of his being, doing, and having. That is the key to developing the leaders around you. As a leader, you must make the development of others a lifestyle. There's that word again. When you believe it, your success in life is multiplied potentially. Your influence is expanded incredibly beyond your personal reach. A positive future is assured for you. Leaders who do not develop people will one day find themselves hitting a wall in their success. No matter how efficient and strategic they are, eventually they run out of time. I found that to be true in my life. I cannot personally create more material than I am currently creating. I cannot mentor more people than I am presently mentoring. I cannot travel and do more conferences than I do now. I am a very energetic person, but I have reached my own physical limits. The only way I can now do more is by doing it through other people. Any leader who learns that lesson and makes it a lifestyle will never hit a wall again. Lifestyle again. So, as I ask you, are you developing the leaders around you? That is it. The only thing left is the back cover, but we're there. We're not there. All right. Let's open it up and go over this chapter, and then we're going on to a couple more things, reviewing what was your biggest aha, and what was like the things that you really will gain from this book.
Good morning, Jameson. Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Amazing, Lisa. How you doing?
Very good, very good. I was highlighting, some parts of this book because I knew network marketing. I started understanding network marketing, in the last project, the prior project. I was learning so many things that I can, I added to my skills. But understanding this, the goal of the good leader is not to change our personality, right? That is great. It's something that I learn now better because we have a leader who is an entrepreneur for more than 30 years, and he's a leader and he's building leaders. He knows how to build leaders. And I love that, and he always let us, show him what are our skills and how to strengthen, our skills. And another thing is that I'm learning, through this experience, as an entrepreneur in network marketing, it's to become a relational, empowering leader, create relations. That is the key for any business, for any, if we are in the church, if we are in different groups of a society, relationship is very important. Don't close doors. It's like I'm learning from Fernando. I like that. I love this one in page 209. I have the other book, Jameson.
Okay.
It says learning, where it says give immediate feedback. It says learning something for the first time is always easier than learning something that was learned wrong. And we can see that. Sometimes we met people, or we meet people that they are very successful, but when they don't learn things in the right when they don't learn right, it's very hard for them to keep successful. And I believe that we are going to give success in successful people, because I believe that we have a great leadership. You and all the leaders that are with us today, this morning. I love that. I love what Cheryl did. She did something great. When she say that she joys to recognize where people are, meet them there, love and accept them, and then mentor them. I love that. It's something that I want to keep doing it and learning better, how to do it better. I'm very excited. I love Shirley. I don't know Cheryl, but I love already her. I love her already. Okay, I love this book. Strangest Good Leaders is something, like we are going to find that people. I believe that we are surrounded with people that they have all of these. What it says over here, the points, they are helping us, they put us on a personal plan to grow. They create opportunities for us to stretch, right? Because I remember, Jameson, when I did my first conversation of lifestyle and legacy conversation, right? I was, like sweating a lot. I was a little nervous. I said, what happened if the computer is shutting down? What happened if I cannot, pull up the PowerPoint? What happened if I don't say the right information? What happened to me if I cannot speak up? And it was great because I finished it. And then I said, oh, it wasn't so hard. It was all in my mind. I was very excited anyway. And sometimes when you are very excited, you try to say things, but it's not, it's not clear. But then you are, like a relaxing, and the next time you are doing better and better and better. It's like it comes to my mind so many examples. When I saw you last Saturday, I said he's a great leader. We have to start. And how we do started, maybe making mistakes, maybe nervous, maybe, things happen, but we have a great backup leaders. We have great leaders. And thank you, Jameson. When you read, oh my God, you put my mind, like thinking and thinking and thinking a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. Definitely when you summarize these skills and when you start talking about that last sentence,
Yes.
I'm thinking about Dr. Parker. I'm thinking about Fernando.
Yes.
Mr. Fernando Ramirez. I'm thinking about all of our leaders that pour into us and
Yes.
literally take us, like you said, take us where we're at, show us the skills that we currently have,
Yes.
enhancing those, and then it's about our habits and how our leadership style or how we lead ourselves comes out
Yes.
of us. And sometimes they're not effective. They're effective for one person or for a situation, but trying to apply that same strategy to every situation is like having a hammer trying to choose everything's a nail.
Yes.
You gotta change the tool. So being in a relationship is like having a whole set of tools and being able to pull out the right tool for the right person and the right situation, because it could be, they're the person, it's almost, how can I put this? When I'm trying to, so there's a gentleman I follow, Dr. DeMartini, anyway. So how can I get my happiness through helping the other person to get their happiness? Because when I see myself getting my happiness through their happiness, then it changes the dynamic completely, because I'm focusing on generating happiness in them through whatever that makes them happy, and then the return I get is right back to where my happiness is enhanced. We all rise together, and being able to see their skill, and then being able to apply the right little tweak to them to help them change, and giving that feedback you're talking about. It's like learning to drive or something. You just got to get that feedback, and
Yes.
you get nervous.
Yes.
I got to remember everything. I got to
Sure.
remember everything. And like me being on the Zoom, you got to get really, you get excited, but that energy is literally, you want to succeed, but you're trying to pay attention to everything, and it's hard to do. But when you can relax and just flow, then it makes a big difference.
I love that, Jameson, when you say, when I see my happiness through their happiness, when I see my joy through their joy. I love that. Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Thank you, Jameson. You're
That
a great, great leader. Thank
and
you.
and I learn a lot from different mentors, and I hear something like that, I'm like, it feels great, because I know that they're feeling great, and as a result, when I tie it, not to say I don't tie it to their happiness, and if that doesn't bloom and blossom in them, that's okay, but at least I know I made the effort, and it makes me happy, and just knowing that I put my, not them first, but we first.
Yes, I
That's the
love that.
key. We
Yeah,
first.
that is the key. Yeah, that is the key. Do everything not for us, just for others. And then we are going to have in return that joy, that happiness, and so much, so much. Thank you. Thank you, Jamieson. Great reading today. Great reading to close this book. I love it.
Anyone else?
Hey, Jameson, I'm back again.
Hello, Fernando.
Not unless my computer, I'm not able to see the screen here pretty well. I see it now. Yeah, a great reading, great wrap up of this book. Uh, I'm taking a lot of it, but in particular, what does it take to first become a leader? I think it takes making, again, you got to have a mentor. And by having a mentor, it allows you to see where you are. And building a relationship with a mentor, it's something that really connects you with the idea of what needs to happen. Obviously, we all have different personalities, but what I like about what we read today is put everyone that you're going to work with on a personal plan for growth. And the reason why I love what we do together as a team and the agenda that we have, it allows anyone that wants to participate to start to get uncomfortable and say, listen, I show up to everything, but now it's time for me to start participating, right? And then when you get close to a leader, the leader will challenge you to do things. And that's the thing that I love about who we are and the people that we work with and the leaders that we work with, or potential leaders. And Jameson, you have done a phenomenal job. When we ask you, can you read for us? Can you give us a presentation? I know how challenging that was for you because I've been there when you're challenged to do something that you don't know how it's going to turn out, like Elisa was saying, right? Would I look dumb if I, read and I don't read well, or I make mistakes, or, I don't communicate the right message. So we question things a lot. But then when we show up and we make appearance, all of a sudden, what we thought it was going to be a huge deal ends up being nothing. It was just in your head, like Elisa said, right? The other thing that I like about doing that is now you start to see what changes you need to make and what areas you need to improve, right? Like, for instance, I talk to Zena sometimes and I let her know, hey, these are the things we're going to change, we're going to improve. Same thing with you. Create opportunities to stretch them. And anyone that is here, all you need to do is raise your hand or participate enough times, get close to a mentor, and if you're asked to read, don't refuse the opportunity, because that's the leader that you're working with is seeing growth in you and what you can bring to the table. And yes, you're going to make mistakes. Remember, these events are not recorded, they're live events. So it's okay to make mistakes. The thing about it is, we make one mistake, let's not let that freeze us. At the contrary, let that opportunity makes us stronger. Make sense? So that's what I like about what is create opportunities to stretch them. We have assignments pending with Jameson, right? So today you brought me back to a conversation with you. You see how this works? Because if we constantly show up, it only tells us that we do want to become leaders, that we do want to be, someone that we can change someone else's lives, as you mentioned earlier, Jameson. If someone's happiness eventually becomes your happiness, because it's how do we call this? Reciprocates. The energy is going backwards and forward, right? So we're communicating energy because we're playing the game of leading. And by playing the game of leading is creating the opportunities for all of us to grow. And I want to congratulate you once again, because you are the last leader that we have, that we're developing, by helping you and giving you the opportunity to show your true talent. And you're definitely doing a phenomenal job. So congratulations, Jameson. I am very proud of you. Tremendous read this morning. Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
not what happens to you, it's what happens in you.
Well, thank you, Fernando. Definitely. And thank you for all your mentorship. And as I can see parts of this last chapter where definitely, it's saying my situation, my mindset. One of the things you going back to uh the opportunities to step up and to be, pulling someone up and saying, okay, you have an opportunity. That's an interesting thing is I've delved into Toastmasters a couple of times, and I think Mr. Wilner is a Toastmaster master. And one of the things they do is they like to give you little opportunities, like just to say a little snippet, and it just gets you up out of your shell, kind of, and do a little a 1 minute thing, and off the side, not like as a main presenter, and it just gets you doing the book club, doing little things along the way, making comments, opening the mic, making comments, are little steps towards feeling more comfortable and not like looking at yourself and looking at your head while you're trying to present, and caring more about um the message. And if you care about the message in your audience, then the little mistakes are just bumps in the road that you just go around. You don't freeze on them. You just see them as, yep, I'm a human, I make errors, I just keep on going. That's the key thing, is whenever you fall down, do you keep on going? That's the most important part. Anyone else?
So this is the end of our book, right? Developing the leaders around you. All right. Thank you, Jameson, so much. Everyone, next Saturday, we're going to start with a new book from Robert Kiyosaki, which is the cash flow quadrant. Oops, I am sorry. Eric's trying to unmute. Oh my goodness. Sorry about that. There you go. Let's here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to give everyone a chance to unmute. If they have any comments, I do apologize. Eric, go right ahead.
Yeah, I thought it was over
Morning,
in
my friend.
timeout. First of all,
Great to hear from you, Eric. Thank you so much for being here with us as always.
well, thank you for this opportunity to be here, because I look forward to this get together every Saturday morning. It's in my opinion, the best way to start a Saturday off on a great and positive note, together with positive, expansion-minded people. And Jameson, you've done a great job. And in fact, I'm extremely proud of how far you've come, and watching your growth process, and it really makes you kind of think about a lot of these things, because You see, entrepreneurs tend, or can be bulldogs, right? Because they have this dream, this mission in their mind, and a lot of times they'll walk through walls to do that, but they won't pay attention always to the people around them, you know. And so I was while I was thinking that, I was thinking about the book that we read previously, right? The four colors, the personality colors. And I try to be more aware of that all the time now. And the funny thing about that is that there was the four colors: the red, the driver, the blue, the expressive and celebratory person, the green, the analytical. And I'm all of those. So I may have a dominant side, but I'm all of those. But what I noticed in this book, in this conversation, is the lack of yellow. And when I was a teenager, I went on a trip to the Grand Canyon, and I camped out on the banks of the Colorado River at night. And while everyone slept in tents, I wanted to go sleep on top of a rock out in the open, because it was beautiful to watch the moon, and it happened to be a full moon when we were there. As the moon moved across the sky, the shadows would change. But what stuck with me to this day is how insignificant as a one speck in the universe I was. And it was when I first had the question, is what difference will I make? And that's been a question. And I think that's the leading reason behind why I'm so passionate about putting people in homes, because that's the difference that I can make. And so, from the Bible to this book, it's better to give than it is to receive, our contribution to the world, and I love the way that it was framed differently, to see my happiness through the happiness of others, was very, very, very impactful. And then, and so, I hope this book helped other people to sort of introspectively look at, because what our biggest contribution to the world can be is to leave more leaders. So back to you, Jameson. Great read, great job. I'm looking forward to devouring the next book.
That's amazing. Eric, it's wow. Just to realize how vast the universe is, and how many people are on the planet, and then what is the lever that I have, literally the impact. How can I make the greatest impact? And literally, home ownership is like one of the rings are actually of development, to where that's it's the key stability. Like you were saying in your presentations, it's like it's a difference between a homeowner and a renter. It's vastly different. And then not only the income wise, not only the economic wise, but all the other parts of development, all the other assets, stability, mental, emotional, divorce rate, everything is just key to that. And having that as a deep calling is just, it serves so many people that it makes a big impact on the planet. Home ownership alone. That's amazing. Thank you, Eric. And thank you for
Thank
all
you.
your mentorship too.
Thank you. And it's been a pleasure and an honor.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. See, I love to hear, the leadership group, how we get along with each other. And I feel that one person alone can only do so much. But when you start to see other leaders, that you're surrounded with, you can really appreciate, what they bring to the table. So, wow, Eric, that was awesome. By the way, he's going to be the icebreaker of our next upcoming book. So it's the cash flow quadrant. If you haven't ordered the book yet, now's the time to do it. Maybe we can get it on the chat here. I'll go look for it, or anybody can help me with that. Yeah, place your order, because that book is really going to change your perspective and how much growth we have because there's people on the wrong side of the quadrant that we need to bring to the right side of the quadrant. And as Eric alluded to, which is developing leaders, changing someone's life. And Jameson, the word lifestyle came out a lot, right? As you were reading, and you
Yep.
kept repeating that, and that got stuck to my head. That's the perspective. Is
Leadership
to
lifestyle, it's really important because that's when you actually make it part of you and how you operate. That's that be to have. When you change what you're being, and then that changes what you're doing, and then people naturally, like you talked about, and there's people will see, model, and mimic what you do. And the vision of the leader literally is carried throughout all that he influences, and they absorb, like that last leader absorbs through just being around them, and they can duplicate it easily. That's just amazing.
wow. All right, so we're gonna. I guess we're pretty much done. Thank you so much, Jameson. We really appreciate pouring into us this morning. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Elisa, Michelle, for your comments, and everyone that is here. We really appreciate having you all here. Again, feel free to raise your hand whenever you're ready to pair up, with your mentor, your leader. Let them know, I want to participate. I want to be the next reader or the next presenter, and start looking at the materials that you need to study in order for you to develop your skills, because you're needed. We need one another, and the best way to be able to see your true potential is sometimes you got to get uncomfortable, but you got to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And the more comfortable you become with the uncomfortable, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and you got to make a lot of mistakes all the time. I don't think there's a person that doesn't make any mistakes. We can talk about the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, a ton of mistakes. And right now, he's being exposed because he now experienced a new journey that challenged his brand. But we all go through it. It's part of the process. All right. So anyone else before we wrap up and
Hey,
play a little
Fernando,
music?
I just wanted to throw in just another sort of comment about the next book we're going to be reading, the Cash Flow Quadrants by by Robert Kiyosaki. And most people have heard of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is a very easy read, a very simple book to read, and it makes a huge insight and point, about the difference. Most people don't understand finances and don't understand the difference between an asset and a liability, right? It's and that's something that not just accountants have to know. Everybody should understand the difference. And he goes on to use the story about how he had a rich dad, which was not his biological dad, but was his mentor. And then he had his poor dad, which was his biological dad that he loved and everything. But they both had two very different perspectives. And since we're a group of entrepreneurs, if you haven't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, go see the summary of it on YouTube, go read the book. But that would be 101 level class. And then what we're going to start reading next week, which is the cash flow quadrants, is when you're ready to take it to the next level, to understand the cash flow quadrants. And basically a quadrant, so there's a box and there's 4 squares. And what's very interesting, and we'll get this as we go into the book, there's the left side of the square, and then there's the right side of the square. And most people, the majority of people, live psychologically or mentally on the left side of the quadrant. And I'm not going to give away the book, but the object of the game is to get to the right side of the quadrant. And we'll talk a lot about that. So don't miss out getting on the book, the cash flow quadrants. Go, cheat a little bit, go look at the summary of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, so that you kind of understand the perspective. And I guarantee this is going to be a lot of fun and some great discussion in our next book as well.
Thank you, Eric. All right. So you already got some tips to do your homework, do your assignment, and then get the book. But yes, go do a little, research on Rich Dad Poor Dad, which was, I think, my fourth book that I read. This book that they in it, and it's every time, I think every 10 years, they change a little bit on the book. They bring a new version. So make sure you get the latest version on the cash flow quadrant of the book. We're gonna play some music, ladies and gentlemen. I will be your presenter today, and it's a true honor for me to participate with that. So I just ask for the participation of us sending out the invites right after we wrap up the conversation of this morning. We're going to do the training, and I'll be also helping with the training. And it's an honor to do that too as well. All right, so thanks so much, everyone. Let's play some music. We'll stop the recording for now so we can have sections. If you want to go and just grab the reading club section through our channel, you can do that. It's diversify. It's not diversified. Diversify cash flow. It was an open name that we got, and it worked out. So it's diversify. I'm not sorry. Let's say diversify cash flow is our channel. You can grab the link on the chat, and also there's the link to purchase the book. So we'll see you in a short 19 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Get ready. Be back. Thanks again, Jameson.
You're welcome. And by the way, that link is